After 2 years as a prisoner, the Queen herself appeared at my cell and told me she needed a father for her daughter. Not politically, not genetically, but someone to actually raise the heir to her empire. And she chose me, a human prisoner, because I was the most honorable person she had seen in 10 years of watching me protect others in captivity. I was sitting on the cold floor when the cell door creaked open. The familiar clang of metal against stone sent my heart racing as it always did. Guards. Just another day to be dragged out for some form of interrogation or torture, probably both. But then something happened that I never expected. Behind them, her, Queen Seraphine Valkyrie, stepped into the light cast by the guards' torches. Her presence was like an eclipse, overshadowing everything else in the room. The first time I saw her had been during my sentencing hearing, when she'd pronounced me a prisoner for life. A death sentence, really, not exactly uncommon among the Valkyrie. "Commander Eric Vale," she began without preamble, as the guards withdrew and closed the door behind them. Her voice was like polished glass, cold yet somehow resonant with power. 2 years in my prison, still unbroken. I remained silent, offering her no response beyond a steady gaze. She had all the words. I preferred to save mine. "I have watched you," she continued, moving closer until we stood face to face within inches of each other. The guards' torches cast shadows that danced on our faces as if trying to communicate what they could not say aloud. "The way you treat other prisoners, your dignity under these circumstances." I stiffened slightly at her proximity, but offered no physical reaction beyond shifting my weight to steady myself. "I have a daughter," she said abruptly, catching me off guard. "Princess Lyra, 5 years old." A princess? What did that mean for me here? "She has no father," Seraphine continued before I could voice any questions or protestations. Her gaze met mine with unwavering intensity, as if searching through my eyes to find the answer she sought. "The nobles have failed her, Eric Vale. They offer politics and power, but not the heart of a parent." The Queen's expression softened for just an instant, almost like genuine concern peeking through icy resolve. "You want nothing from me except freedom, Your Highness." I started to say something, anything that could make this situation clearer, more understandable. "I need someone," she interrupted smoothly but firmly, her hand rising and extending towards mine with an unexpected gesture of trust. "To raise Lyra, to teach her the values your people hold dear, honor, compassion, dignity even in darkness." My mind raced through every scenario that could make sense out of this absurd one. "This is insane," I blurted without thought. Seraphine's lips quirked into something akin to a smile, the first time she showed any hint of emotion during our exchange. It was chilling and oddly compelling at once, as if she had just revealed an inner world far more complex than her rigid exterior suggested. "Possibly," she conceded evenly, but there was no backing down in those violet eyes. "Your daughter needs someone who will be present for her growth, rather than simply overseeing it from afar. And you have proven to me over 2 years that you embody qualities I want passed on." I stared at the hand offered before me, a queen's gift of freedom, family, and responsibility beyond my wildest imagination. Each second stretched into minutes, as countless possibilities swirled within. In front of her unyielding gaze, I realized there was no good reason to reject this offer, save for fear itself. Fear of what it might mean, how much it could change yet also break me in new ways unknown until now. Still gripping my honor tightly despite everything else around us crumbling under impossible circumstances and choices that shouldn't even exist, I took her hand. I will meet her." Princess Lyra was 5, a whirlwind of curiosity and energy that contrasted sharply with the reserved demeanor of most Valkyrie adults Eric had encountered so far. She entered the meeting chamber, holding her mother's hand, eyes wide as she surveyed everything around them. Her gaze landed on Eric standing beside Queen Seraphine. "Are you the human Mother told me about?" Lyra's voice was a curious blend of innocence and authority, much like her appearance. A small figure clad in soft blue robes that belied her sharp intelligence and inherent strength. "I am Eric," he replied with a slight bow as he knelt down to meet her level. "Nice to meet you, Lyra." She studied him intently for a moment before nodding seriously. "Mother said you are brave. Are you brave?" Eric hesitated only briefly. "Sometimes, when I have to be." Lyra's eyes widened further with interest. "I want to be brave, but sometimes I am scared." Her brow furrowed in concentration, as if trying to grasp an abstract concept. He smiled warmly at her earnestness. "Brave doesn't mean not being afraid. Brave means you are scared, but do what needs doing anyway." Her eyes went wide with wonder. "Really?" "Absolutely," Eric confirmed with a nod. "The bravest people I know are always scared too." He paused before adding gently, "But they're brave enough to face it." Lyra's face lit up in a radiant smile that seemed to light the room itself. "I like you. Can you stay?" She looked back at her mother with hopeful eyes, tugging Seraphine's hand urgently. Seraphine watched them both with an expression Eric couldn't quite read, somewhere between awe and determination, as she observed how quickly Lyra had taken a liking to him. It was clear this interaction meant far more than Hyde initially understood. Nobles often bored her or scared her, but here was someone speaking directly to who she needed. Seraphine gave a small nod in Eric's direction, and then addressed her daughter with quiet reassurance. "That is up to him." Lyra immediately turned back towards Eric, grasping his hand eagerly. "Please stay. Mother is always busy. I want someone to play with." Her voice was earnest, yet tinged with the unspoken plea of a child yearning for companionship. Eric looked down at Lyra, and then glanced up at Queen Seraphine, this small being who so desperately needed something he had no idea how to provide. He knew she trusted him despite everything. It made his chest ache with an unfamiliar weight, both heavy and light, all at once. And here was the child asking for more than just time or play. A bond, perhaps even family. "I will stay," Eric said firmly after another moment of consideration. The words held their own gravity, promises unspoken but understood between them in that instant. Lyra's face broke into an elated smile, and she hugged him tightly around the waist with surprising strength for her age. It was the first physical affection he'd received since before his capture, its warmth a stark contrast to everything else. For a moment, Eric held on just as fiercely, protecting this little girl from whatever darkness threatened them both. Seraphine watched silently while Lyra pulled back and clung to Eric's hand again with renewed vigor. When she turned her eyes towards the Queen, there was unmistakable affection now between mother and daughter that seemed to solidify before their very gazes. Later, alone in a more private chamber reserved for conversations of state and family alike, Seraphine approached him directly amidst piles of documents strewn about on an elegant desk. "Thank you," she said simply, but sincerely, without the usual formality or distance previously maintained between them during formal meetings. Eric looked up at her from where he'd been sitting down among some of Lyra's toys scattered across a plush rug to entertain himself while waiting for further instructions regarding his new role and responsibilities in this strange empire. "I have not done anything yet," he replied honestly, still grappling with the enormity of all that had transpired thus far. Seraphine shook her head firmly, as if dismissing such thoughts out of hand. "You made her smile. That is more than most have managed." Her tone was softer now, almost tender despite her typically reserved demeanor, touching his arm lightly before withdrawing. "Whatever that means." Eric blinked in surprise at the casual declaration, but did not pull away from her touch. Instead, he felt a warmth spreading through him like light piercing shadow, something new and fragile, yet potentially strong, beyond measure. "Welcome to my family, Eric Vale," she continued after a moment of silent reflection. For the first time since his capture began 2 years ago, Eric had purpose outside merely survival. A young princess who needed guidance as much as comfort in an unfamiliar world. An alien queen desperate enough to trust him implicitly with her daughter's future instead of choosing from among nobility or advisors. And perhaps most importantly, a chance at redemption beyond the confines of his prison walls, something he never thought would be possible again, but now felt within reach despite its daunting challenges ahead. He had no idea what it meant, being family, to someone like Queen Seraphine Valkyrie. Yet somehow weeks passed since Eric had taken on this impossible role, his days spent teaching and playing with Princess Lyra, while nights were filled with uncertainty about what tomorrow would bring. The Valkyrie Empire was a place of rigid tradition, yet here he stood as an unlikely guardian to their future ruler. Eric taught Lyra simple lessons, counting the stars in her room, or identifying alien flora through educational holograms projected by the palace's advanced technology. She absorbed knowledge with remarkable speed, but yearned for something more than just facts and figures. She craved companionship, trust, a bond that transcended language barriers. One morning, as Eric read to Lyra from an ancient human storybook about heroes, her eyes lit up brightly with admiration. "Father," she whispered softly after the tale ended, "you are my hero too." Eric's heart clenched at her words. This child had grown incredibly attached, and he found himself feeling equally bonded despite everything that separated them. In a corridor of the palace, Regent Krath observed from afar as Eric interacted with Lyra effortlessly. His expression twisted into a sneer. "That human," he muttered under his breath, seething at being sidelined by someone who had been nothing but a prisoner until recently. Regent Krath approached Queen Seraphine that evening in her private chambers, where she often retreated to think through pressing matters of state and personal decisions alike. "Your Majesty," Regent Krath bowed slightly before speaking firmly with an edge of menace in his voice. "This arrangement you've made is unconventional at best. Eric Vale was meant to be executed, not elevated." Seraphine's violet eyes flashed, but she remained composed, looking directly into her regent's narrowed gaze without flinching. "Regent Krath," Seraphine replied coldly, in return with authority of her own weight behind it. "Eric Vale has proven himself worthy through his actions and devotion to Lyra. Not every decision is made by tradition or politics." A muscle ticked at the side of Regent Krath's jaw as he clenched his fists tightly together, but forced himself not to lash out immediately in front of such a high-profile witness. He countered, "You are putting your daughter's legacy into question by choosing this human. He may be loyal now, but what happens when Valkyrie nobles rise against him? Then they will meet the same fate as those who challenge my rule," Seraphine stated with cold certainty, her tone leaving no room for argument. Regent Krath's expression darkened further before he bowed again in a show of feigned respect. "As you wish, Your Majesty." He left quickly without another word, but his eyes remained fixed on Eric and Lyra's direction, as if daring him to fail at the task set forth by their queen. Eric felt something stir within when Seraphine announced that Regent Krath demanded a public trial to validate his guardianship over Princess Lyra. A part of him rebelled against such scrutiny, but another realized it was necessary for acceptance in this empire, where traditions held more sway than merit alone could ever earn overnight. When asked whether he would accept the trial, Eric looked directly at the princess, who now trusted and relied on him completely. His heart ached knowing that failure meant losing everything they had built together so far, but his resolve hardened with each passing second of hesitation from Lyra's earnest eyes. "I accept," Eric said calmly yet firmly after another moment's consideration. "Fitness is demonstrated, not declared." Regent Krath nodded almost imperceptibly before speaking out loudly enough for all present within the throne room to hear clearly. The trial would be traditional Valkyrie in nature. Combat challenges that tested strength and agility against elite guardsmen. Knowledge exams assessing command of royal protocols and Valkyrie history, necessary for any noble or advisor worth their place beside Seraphine herself. He performed admirably on the academic fronts, memorizing codes of law, historical dates, strategic military maneuvers required of a future leader like Lyra, but stumbled during combat sequences due unfamiliarity and lack of innate physical abilities. Eric's heart raced with dread, but he forced himself to remain calm as each test began one by one. Regent Kraft's sneering face grew more triumphant with each failure until finally they reached an arena designated for final evaluations. Here, the stakes were raised dangerously high. Eric was tasked to protect Princess Lyra against all attackers using whatever means necessary while maintaining honor under duress. As opponents charged from shadows set loose by unseen mechanisms, Eric's focus sharpened instantly. Only this mattered now, her safety above everything else. He threw himself between threats and his ward, without hesitation even when blades came too close for comfort or shields shattered dangerously near both of them alike. And then the moment that sealed it all, the most pivotal failure according to protocol was staged by Kraft's manipulation. An opponent aimed at Lyra instead, but Eric stepped in front, taking a glancing blow, meant solely for her harm. He crumpled slightly, blood seeping from his side as medics rushed forward with immediate treatment. "Report," Seraphine demanded tersely once the chaos calmed around them, and only then did everyone witness how Eric had taken that hit instead of Lyra. She was unharmed thanks to him. Regent Krath seized this opening immediately, you see. Months turned into years as Eric raised Lyra, instilling in her values of honor, kindness, and bravery. The Valkyrie court watched from afar, initially skeptical, but gradually accepting him as an integral part of their future. Eric's days were filled with lessons tailored to teach young Princess Lyra the intricacies of ruling with compassion and integrity. He taught her about history through tales of valor and sacrifice, ensuring that she understood not just the mechanics of governance, but also its moral underpinnings. Each morning began with drills on battlefield strategy, followed by etiquette training in the afternoon. One day, as they walked back from an archery session where Lyra had excelled beyond her years, a Valkyrie noble approached them. "Princess Lyra," he bowed respectfully before addressing Eric. "Commander Vale." Eric nodded politely, his gray eyes sharp but calm. He knew the man was testing him once more. "The regent has issued another challenge," the noble stated coolly. "He believes that a true guardian of Princess Lyra should be able to navigate her inheritance without fail." "I accept," Eric replied firmly, turning back towards their quarters with determination in his stride. The Valkyrie court watched from afar, observing this human who had risen above expectations. As the days passed and challenges became more frequent and complex, one night found Eric standing alone on a balcony overlooking the bustling royal city below. Lyra was asleep upstairs after another day of rigorous training sessions. His heart swelled with pride for her progress, but also with concern about the growing animosity from some quarters within court. In that moment, Queen Seraphine joined him quietly beside the rail. She had watched Eric and Lyra grow closer each passing year into a bond as tight and unbreakable as any Valkyrie families could be. Tonight, she wanted to acknowledge what he meant to her daughter, and what she herself felt toward this human man. "He adores you," Seraphine said softly, breaking the silence between them. "The feeling is mutual." Seraphine met his gaze steadily for several heartbeats before continuing. "Tai chose you because of your honor and dignity even in captivity." A shadow crossed Eric's features briefly at mention of those early days, but quickly vanished as he thought about all that had transpired since then. Eric turned towards her with a gentle smile playing on his lips. "And yet," Seraphine continued hesitantly, her violet eyes searching his face for understanding. "You have given me more than I ever imagined possible." Her voice trailed off, and she seemed to struggle with finding the right words for a moment before continuing resolutely. "Gratitude, respect, trust." Her breath hitched slightly as if this admission cost her greatly. Eric waited quietly, sensing there was something deeper beneath these carefully chosen phrases. When Seraphin finally met his eyes again, he could see vulnerability shining through, something so rare and unexpected from a queen accustomed to commanding rather than sharing feelings openly. She took another deep breath before finishing softly. Trust became something else. Eric understood exactly what she meant. The bond between them had evolved far beyond any initial expectations. It was built on nights spent discussing Lyra's future, shared laughter during her first clumsy attempts at archery lessons, and countless moments of quiet contemplation together. "I was supposed to be just her father," Eric said quietly after a pause, his hand reaching out almost unconsciously toward hers, hanging loosely by her side. Seraphin looked into his eyes, then squeezed lightly when their fingers touched, a silent acknowledgement that perhaps she saw something more in him too, something worth naming and nurturing beyond mere guardianship. He leaned closer, pressing a soft kiss to her cheek as gratitude washed over him for everything they had built together through trials and trials unright. "Then, let us make it official," Seraphin murmured softly, but decidedly after their initial touch lingered briefly between them. "Consort." In the darkness of night outside, shadows seemed to shift and recede, as if acknowledging this new partnership formed amidst turmoil and challenge alike. Two souls finding solace and strength where none should exist for a human prison. Raised by an alien queen's daughter. Partner. She squeezed his hand again firmly before adding, "Family." Eric nodded solemnly, then kissed her forehead tenderly in mutual agreement. This bond forged through shared struggles and triumphs solidified Eric's place within Valkyrie society, not just as Lyra's father figure, but also as Seraphin's chosen equal. And so it was that the unconventional path laid out years ago by Queen Seraphin bore unexpected fruit, proving once again that love can blossom, even in the most unlikely circumstances given time, trust, and mutual respect. The prisoner became a father, and now he had become something more beside her. Partner, consort, family. And together they would face whatever challenges lay ahead as one united front, ready to uphold the legacy of honor built through trials and shared joy alike.
Là, si je commençais à écrire dehors du Centre Bell, devant l'écran géant, ça commençait à faire pas mal beaucoup. Oui, guys, SO Total IAS, c'est notre collab d'aujourd'hui, les gars. J'aimerais ça que vous allez lâcher un beau follow à sa chaîne. Elle est vraiment drôle,
Funny,
she
je
is
suis
funny.
gentille.
Puis elle ressemble à Crosby.
Ouais, les gens ont dit que je ressemble. Non, mais il est
Crosby,
chaud, fait que techniquement, je suis
Crosby,
chaude.
il est très beau gosse.
Voilà,
très beau
fait que
gosse.
je suis belle gosse.
Attention, elle est bonne, Lexa, au Muay Thai. Puis elle est bonne en boxe, guys. Fait que voilà, gros fight ou quoi? Gros fight.
On fight?
Non, non, non.
I mean,
Faut se calmer.
non, mais
Faut se calmer. Faut se calmer là déjà, parce que là sinon je vais dire à moi. Je sais pas. Fait que guys, on est dans Downtown de Montréal. Toi tu viens de Montréal, Yas.
ouais,
Right?
moi j'habite ici.
Yas habite ici. Donc moi là, Montréal pour moi c'est dangereux. C'est une ville.
Ça c'est vrai. Moi je trouve
Non
ça
mais
vraiment drôle.
c'est dangereux,
Non,
Montréal.
Montréal c'est chill.
It is
Je
dangerous.
pourrais demander à n'importe qui, ils vont me dire que Montréal c'est chill.
Tout à l'heure, tu voulais trouver des visages sympathiques parce que you
Non,
know.
non, c'est pas dangereux, c'est juste les gens.
Salut
sont pas très
Simply Didi,
sympathiques.
comment tu vas?
Hello Didi, ça c'est
Hello.
la girl.
C'est ta girl?
C'est ma
Salut
girl.
girl. Fait que guys, là je sais que j'ai pas annoncé le live, fait qu'on va attendre que les gens arrivent, genre je viens de poster une story. Allez dans le Discord, dites yo, venez-vous-en. Les gars, guys, aujourd'hui c'est un stream IRL cool, on est dans Downtown Montréal, ça va être, je vais interagir avec les gens, on est avec Yas, qu'on va la faire sortir un peu de sa zone de confort. Puis si on se rend à 150 subs, en ce moment là, on est à 72